Those of you who are watching us online today, thank you very much for being part of this. We're sorry that you're not here in the room with us. We've got much more in store for you, of course, when the program picks up in a moment. Now, you heard me say, if you were with us a few minutes ago when we were on stage talking about Mars, how and why, with the emphasis on the how, that we had a lot more we were going to talk about. And fortunately, we've got at least two and maybe a third coming of the panelists that I was talking to on stage just a few moments ago. Let me bring Steve Jurczyk over first of all. Steve, I told you when we were backstage, when we got back there, the thing I regretted, international collaboration. How critical will it be?
Yeah, so first of all, philosophically, I believe that human exploration of the solar system needs to be an international endeavor. I think, my belief is the human race is meant to be a multi-planet species, at least a two-planet species. Mars is the first target, and it absolutely has to be an international endeavor. So philosophically, I believe that is true. And then practically speaking, for me, it's like all hands on deck, both technologically and systems development-wise. We need all the talent around the country and around the globe if we're going to develop all the technologies and the capabilities that we need. I'm gonna turn it over to Jim because his organization has been collaborating internationally for many years and is doing that on Orion and has plans for potential collaborations for future capabilities and missions.
Jim, just come right up here between the two of us.
I mentioned it briefly up there, the international piece relative to habitation, the work we're trying to do with our international partners to determine how they'd like to participate in future missions.
We're blocking traffic here.
Right, yeah. Building off what we're doing today on ISS. And what we're doing on European Service Module. Steve talked about the technology that's out there elsewhere in the world to help us. It's also we all go forward and explore together, but it's also an economic piece of it too, right? We can't afford base in LEO, building off of ISS, and then we all go on together to explore further on the solar system.
And as long as you're already standing there, it's not just international collaboration, but Steve mentioned, we're also talking about commercial collaboration. Red Dragon has come up a couple of times today. And people need to understand that these operations, SpaceX is not just moving forward on its own. This is hand in hand with NASA.
It is, right? I mean, the commercial industry that we've enabled with cargo services to ISS, soon to be crew services to ISS, those commercial services also potentially could be used in cislunar space, going out to some orbit around the moon as well. So that collaboration, and I don't want to lose sight of, we talk about the innovation that happens in the commercial world. A lot of that's built off of NASA work from years ago, right? Some of the Hopper work that we did, a lot of the LOX-RP work that we've done. So we've enabled that industry with cargo service contracts, crew contracts, but we've also enabled it by the work we've done earlier, and hopefully that will continue with a strong commercial base in LEO that we're trying to enable on ISS today, and eventually helping us do maybe logistics flight out to cislunar.
The first time I talked to SpaceX folks on Planetary Radio, the weekly show that we have coming out of the Planetary Society, one of the things they talked about in the work that they were doing at that time to develop the Dragon capsule was that they had gotten copies of every piece of material, all of the reports that were done during the Apollo period, and it's stacked up like 4 feet high. And they said that was their Bible in developing Dragon.
Yep, sure. And we obviously learn a tremendous amount every time we go fly. There's no doubt about it. In fact, it was mentioned by Rick, and that is even if we go fly, like for example with the supersonic parachute development, we had 2 structural failures of 2 chutes, but we've learned a tremendous about parachutes, supersonic parachutes, and we also learned a lot about what we don't know and what the challenges we have. But yeah, there's nothing like getting flight data. And we don't get a chance to get a lot of flight data at Mars because we only get to go about every 24 months. So on MSL and, for example, on MSL and on Mars 2020, we're going to have an instrumentation package that's going to measure the pressures on the heat shield and the recession of the thermal protection system and temperatures. And now on 2020, we're going to have some back shell measurements. that provides data, doesn't help that mission, but it provides data to feed into our models to help the next mission to optimize the thermal protection system or better design the flight controller for the the GNC and flight controller. And so those are the things we need to do. And I'm not surprised they grab. Sierra Nevada, their Dream Chaser is based on my plug for my old
the Dream Chaser.
Yeah, the Dream Chaser is actually based on the HL-20, which is actually based on a Russian vehicle called the Boar. And so when Sierra Nevada was looking at evolving that vehicle into the Dream Chaser, they not only went to Langley and got all the data from Langley, Mark Sarangelo went back to Russia and talked to the Russians and got some of the Boar data and to feed into the Dream Chaser design. So similar thing, yeah.
Something that Deva talked about before that she is hoping is provided to the public and especially young people and underserved communities by all of this work as it moves forward. My boss, the science guy, is sitting right over here. He would, I'm sure, talk about the importance of what this means for young people if it's handled the right way.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of what, it's part of why, it's one of the many reasons why we explore and why civilizations inspire the next generation of scientists, engineers, mathematicians, artists, like David mentioned, and to provide that challenge that will motivate them and allow them to achieve things that we've never achieved before, like what we're trying to do here. So there's no doubt about it that not only NASA, but just space exploration in general, I think is a great motivator and really throws the challenges out there to bring the best out in people. And Jim and I probably will not be working for the agency when humans are walking on Mars, would be my guess. I don't know about you, Jim, but I probably won't be. And so it's up to us to lay the groundwork for that next generation to be successful.
And I think, we'll see if we survive the day, right? But I'm looking at I've always said the dollar invested in NASA is like a dollar invested in education. You're doubling down on the dollar that you're putting into it. Most of the folks who work for NASA, at least in my generation of NASA, watched the end of the Apollo, watched Shuttle. That's where my inspiration came from. And hopefully the programs that are going on in space in general with SpaceX, with Blue Origin, with Orbital, with the Sierra Nevada, seeing those developments are inspiring people, and that's built out of dollars going into space, not dollars just going into education.
And that's to say nothing about the return on investment from the technologies, the spin-offs that you know a little bit about. That's just going to continue as well.
I think so too. I think Steve mentioned our job, what we've been used as an agency for in foreign policy, economic development, education. I think we have to keep doing that. It's almost a loop, right? It's what technology can we pull in to use that's used in different ways on the outside, and how can we get the word on our technology out there that we don't even know the applications that could be used for. So it's for us getting our technology out there. I used to work with a gentleman who put it as closing the taxpayer investment loop. Invest in NASA, it goes back into the economy somehow. That's a big job of us, and Steve's organization does a lot of that too.
Yeah, and I think we're trying to be more proactive. Technology transfer activities are, we have a technology and we go around, do you want it, do you want it, do you want it, do you want it? And they go, oh, I'm not sure how we're going to use it. This is companies now. So we're trying to be more, and actually at Jim's old center, he led a lot of this activity in saying, okay, what are your challenges and opportunities? Okay, let's go in our portfolio, right, in our portfolio of IP and inventions and see what we have to where we might collaborate with you on enabling a new product or service in aerospace or automotive or health or oil and gas, right? And then have a more active collaboration. Jim led a very successful activity at Glenn in regional economic development, where regionally in the Cleveland area and greater Cleveland area, we were trying to pair up technologists and entrepreneurs to kind of drive what they were trying to do in their businesses. So again, we'll still do spin-off, and we'll still do licenses and patents, but we're trying to be more proactive and see how we can bring our IP to bear on that. We're also making IP and technologies available initially license fee free initially. So that allows companies to use the technology without an upfront investment, and if they're successful, then we'll collect those fees later on.
If you've just joined us, we are on break at the Humans to Mars Summit here in Washington, D.C., and spending a little bit of time with a couple of the three NASA administrators that I had on stage with me a few minutes ago. We'll be getting back into the regular program in just a few minutes here, so do stay with us because there is much more coming up all day here at the H2M Summit. And I hope that somebody, if they get a cue, will let me know that we're getting toward the end of the break so I know when to shut up here and they can put it back on stage. We are getting some questions from people who are watching online, gentlemen, Steve Jurczyk and Jim Free. Here is one that comes from Heidi. How concerned are you that the next president may not support the current programs? And let's see, is this related? I'll get to that one next. Are you very concerned? Is the administrator concerned about making sure that we have the continuity that we touched on stage? Steve?
Well, yeah, I mean, as leaders of the agency, it's our job to lay out a plan, right, in technology, systems development, and missions that move us forward to eventually human missions to Mars, and to effectively articulate that plan and advocate for that plan with the next administration. And so that's our job. So assuming that we start interacting with the transition teams maybe this summer and the transition team after the election, I am cautiously optimistic that we'll be able to lay out the rationale and the details of our plans, and the next administration will see it as an effective way of implementing civil space policy for the nation, as well as maybe some of these other objectives in economic, international, education, and other policies, and we'll be successful.
We got a question as well. Don't know who this one came from, but how will you keep the public excited when it's going to take years, they might have said decades, to get to Mars?
I think the engagement happens with telling what we're doing in today, right? This stuff doesn't happen overnight. I think he's trying to get your attention.
Oh, we're ready to finish the break. You want to finish that thought, Jim?
So it's telling the story of where we're going, and we have to get there incrementally. There's no way to do the jump to Mars. So 2018, right, we're going to launch EM1, 2021, EM2. That cadence of staying on schedule and heading further out in the solar system is the way to get excited. If the ultimate goal of getting further in the solar system isn't good enough, there's these interim milestones that I think get people pretty excited.
Jim Free, Steve Jurczyk, thank you for taking yet another few minutes to join us here during the break at the H2M Summit, and keep up the good work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay, I've been told that we are ready to go back to the stage at the Humans to Mars Summit. We're going to do that now. I'll see you again at the next break. And so we'll turn it over to Artemis, the president of Explore Mars.